Yes, this is the Women Agenda special bank holiday. Yes, it is. How you guys are? Hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday bank holiday if you're in the UK. If you're else around the world, then hopefully you're having a very, very nice day. And I hope you guys are staying safe and being happy, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening. Hope you guys are having a great Monday start of the week. And if you're working, hopefully it goes good for you. Today we're having another special. It's a new series actually. We're talking about India's forgotten women warriors. Those warriors who have even, apart from one warrior, I've not heard of the rest. And that's amazing, considering the Indian media showcases a lot. And this is not disrespect to the male warriors, to the ones who fought for independence, those warriors who fight it and sacrifice their lives. There's no disrespect to them, and they should be showcased. They should be told about the media. They should be shown in the media, in the news. And it's surprising that these women warriors, even Rani Lakshmi Bai, she's not even been mentioned hardly in the media ever. She's even when it's Independence Day, she's never mentioned. Uh, the other people are mentioned, the male warriors, the ones who sacrifice their lives, but she's never mentioned. So why is that the case? We're going to be addressing that. We will be telling about the forgotten women warriors and their role in India. We'll be mentioning about them. And the first one which I want to mention about is Begum Hasrat Mahal. Her name is Begum Hasrat Mahal. Now, Begum Hasrat Mahal, this is under the revolt of 1857, basically. Popular termed, the secretary of the bettterindia.com, popular termed the first war of independence. She was termed the first the first war of independence, rather. Begum Hasrat Mahal declared war against the British East Company with the support of Raja Jalal Singh. She captured Lucknow and declared her 14-year-old son Prince Bijris Qadar the ruler of Oudh. But his rule did not last for long as the British recaptured Lucknow and most parts of Oudh. Begum was dictated to retreat. She did not find asylum in most Indian kingdoms and took refuge in Nepal, where she died in 1879. Now let's talk a bit more about Begum Hasrat Mahal, courtesy of en.wikipedia.org. Like we said, she was also known as the Begum of Awadh, the second wife of Nawab of Awadh Wajid Ali Shah, and the regent of Awadh in 1857 to 1858. She's known for leading the role as the rebellion against the British East Indian Company during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. After her husband had been exiled to Calcutta and the Indian Rebellion broke out, she made her son, like we said, basically. Let's talk a bit about her early life, actually. So Begum Hazrat Mahal's name was Mahamadi Khanum, and she was born in Faizabad, Awadh, India. She was sold by her parents, and she became a courtesan by profession. Now, talking about sold, we always hear about people being sold in India and other countries as well during those times, and even after those times as well. Actually, she entered the royal harem as a Qawasin after being sold to royal agents, where she was promoted to a puri, and was known as Mahak Pari. She became a Begum after being accepted as a royal Qubki King Award, the last Tajdar-e Awad. Wajid Ali Shah became his junior wife, and the title Hazrat Mahal was bestowed on her after the birth of their son. In 1856, the British annexed Awadh and Wajid Ali Shah was exiled to Calcutta. She was eventually to take charge of the affairs of the state of Awadh despite her divorce from the Nawab. Now let's talk about the Indian Rebellion of 1857. During the Indian Rebellion of 1857, Begum Hazrat Mahal's band of supporters rebelled against the forces of the British under the leadership of Raja Jalal Singh. They seized control of Lucknow, and she took power as the guardian of her minor son, Prince Bijri's Qadr, who she had declared as the ruler of Wali of Awadh. As a regent, she automatically came to have a leadership role in the rebellion against the British. One of the precipitants of complaints of Begum Hazrat Mahal was that the East India Company had cautiously demolished temples and mosques just to make way for roads. In a proclamation issued during the final days of the revolt, she mocked the British claim to allow freedom of worship, to eat pigs and drink wine, to bite greased cartridges and to mix pig's fat with the sweet meat, to destroy Hindu and Muslim temple on the pretense of making roads, to build churches, to send clergymen into the streets to preach the Christian religion to English schools, to pay people a monthly stipend for learning the English sciences, while the places of worship of Hindus and Muslims are to this day entirely neglected. With all this, how can people believe that religion will not be interfered with? Hazrat Mahal worked in association with Nana Sahib Balit, joined the Maulavi of Faizabad in the attack of Shahjahanpur. Hopefully I said that right. When the forces under the command of the British recaptured Lucknow, most of Oud, she was forced to retreat. Ultimately, she had to retreat to Nepal, where she was initially refused asylum, but the Rana Prime Minister Jang Bahadurpur was later allowed to stay. She died in 1879 when she was buried in a nameless grave in the grounds of Kathmandu's Jama Masjid. After the death on occasion of the Jubilee of Queen Victoria 1887, the British government pardoned Bijrez Qadar and was allowed to return home. So, regarding memorial, Begum Hasrat Mahal's tomb is located in the central part of Kathmandu near Jama Masjid, Gatangar, not far away from the famous Darbar Marg. It is looked after by the Jama Masjid Central Committee. On 15th August 1962, Mahal was honored at the Old Victoria Park in Hasratganj, Lucknow, for her role of the Great Revolt. Along with the renaming of the park, a mark memorial was constructed, what includes a marble tablet with four round brass plugs bear the coat of arms and the water. From the park has been used for Ramlilas and bonfire during this year as well as Lucknow. In 84, the government of India issued a commemorative stamp in honor of Mahal. The first day cover was designed by C.R. Prakashi and the cancellation was done by Halka Sharma. 50,000 stamps were issued. So the Ministry of Minority Affairs, Government of India started the Begum Hazrat Mahal National Scholarship for uh, meritorious girls belonging to minority communities in India. Well, at least they've done something there rather than nothing. The one which we are going to talk about now is someone who obviously we all are aware who this female warrior was Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, and obviously under UP there is a place called under her name called Jhansi. So at least she was, she was remembered by naming her Jhansi. Though she's never mentioned in the India's independence ever. Regarding when they talk about independence, Jhansi is never mentioned. Rani Lakshmibai, she's never mentioned. She's very rarely mentioned. I've seen in over the years. But she was sorry about that. The phone goes off for the wrong time every time. So, like I said, she's very rarely mentioned. But let's talk about her. So she was fondly referred to as Manu. Manikarnika was the daughter of Vanasai Brahmin priest. She was rechristened Lakshmi Bai in 1842 after she married Maharaj Gangadhar Rahu of Jhansi. Her husband's death in 1853 caused her kingdom Jhansi to be annexed by the British under Lord Dalhousie's doctrine of Lapsi. Also, the British refused to recognize her adopted son, Damodaro's right to rule as a legal heir. They forced Lakshmi Bai out of the Jhansi fort and demoted her to the Rani Mahal, paying her a pension. She sent several appeals to England against her annexation policy, which were rejected. With a sword in hand and a child tied to her back, she fought valiant princess in 1858. The British forces attacked Jhansi, but then Lakshmi Bai fled with her son Kalpi and joined Tatiya Top. They captured Gwalior, but the British regained control. She fought the Battle of Kota Kesari in 1858, dressed in one's uniform. Let's talk about her early life as well. She was educated, courtesy of EN Wikipedia.org. So she was educated at home, was taught to read and write, uh, and was more independent in her childhood than others of her age. Her studies included shooting, horsemanship, and fencing. She had some childhood friends, uh, and she was accustomed to riding on a horseback, accompanied by escorts between the palace and the temple, although sometimes she was carried in a palanquin. Her horses included Sarangi, Pavan, and Badal. According to historians, she rode Badal when escaping from the fort in 1858. Now have been converted into a museum. It houses a collection of archaeological remains of the period between the 9th and the 12th centuries. Now, the history of Jhansi, like we said, she was married, and we talked a bit about that. I mean, the amazing thing is, if you look at the British Raj, they didn't do much right, did they, really? And this is a prime example of that, the way they, kicked her out of her own palace. I mean, they had no right to do that. So the rebellion, obviously, like we had mentioned earlier, was on the 10th of May 1857. It started in Meerut. When news of the rebellion reached Jhansi, the Rani asked the British political officer Captain Alexander Skene for permission to raise a body of armed men for her own protection. Skene agreed to this. The city was relatively calm in the midst of the regional unrest in the morning of 1857, when the Rani conducted a Haldi Kunkum ceremony with pomp in front of her. All the women of Jhansi provided assurance to her subjects and to convince them that the British were cowards and not to be afraid of them. Until this point, Lakshmi Bai was reluctant to rebel against the British. In June 1857, rebellions of the 12th Bengal native infantry seized the strength of Jhansi, causing the British to withdraw. containing the treasure and magazine. And after persuading the British to lay down the arms by promising them no harm, broke the word and massacred 40 to 60 European officers of the garrison, along with their wives and children. The Rani involvement in this massacre is still a subject of debate. An armed officer, Thomas Brennan, characterizing her as a Jezebel of India, the young Rani upon whose head rested the blood of the slain. So 4 days after the massacre, the Sippers left Jhansi, having obtained a large sum of money from the Rani and having threatened to blow up the palace where she lived. Following this, the only source of authority in the city, Rani felt obliged to assume the administration and wrote to Major Erskine, the commissioner of the Sogor division, explaining the events which had led her to do this. So on the 2nd of July, Erskine wrote in reply requesting her to manage the district for the British government until the arrival of a British superintendent. The Rani forces were defeated an attempt by the mutineers to assert the claim of the throne of a rival prince, Sadas Siv Rahu. So there was an invasion of Jhansi by the forces of Company allies Orcher and Datia. The intention, however, was to divide Jhansi between themselves. From August 1857 to January 1858, Jhansi, under the rounds that the troops would be sent there to maintain control, but the fact that none arrived strengthened the position of a party of advisors who wanted independence from British rule. When the British forces finally arrived in March, they found it well defended and the fort had heavy guns which could fire over the town and nearby countryside. And basically, like we said before, what exactly happened. And the next one who we want to talk about is Odadevi. Her name is Odadevi. Now, so the story traces back to the battle is Secunderabad in Lucknow, 1857, while thousands of Indian soldiers were killed under the orders of Colin Campbell, a sharpshooter who hid atop a tree and fired at the Britishers. Only at the end of his battle did they discover it was a woman who was the undercover rebel. With pouches free of ammunition and old pistols, she had successfully killed more than 6 men. That's why the brave woman warrior statue still stands erect in the square outside Secunderabad, Lucknow. Let's talk a bit about Uda Devi, courtesy of Wikipedia.org. So she was a warrior in the Indian Rebellion of 1857 who fought against the British East Company. So on seeing the rising anger of the Indian people with the British administration, Uda Devi reached out to the Queen that district, Begum to enlist for the war. In order to prepare for the battle that was headed their way, the Begum helped her from a women's battalion under her command. When the British attacked Awadh, both Uda Devi and her husband were part of the armed resistance. When she heard that her husband had died in the battle, she unleashed her final campaign in full force. Uda Devi took part in the battle. After issuing instruction to a battalion, she climbed up a peepal tree, began shooting at advanced British soldiers. A British officer into the many of the casualties had bullet wounds indicating steep, direct shots. downward. Suspecting a hidden sniper, he ordered his officers to fire at the trees, dislodged a rebel who fell to the ground dead. Upon investigation, the sniper was revealed as Odadevi. She was armed with a pair of heavy old battalion cavalry pistols, one which was in a belt still loaded and the pouch was still about half full of ammunition. While from the patch in the tree, which had been carefully prepared before the attack, she had killed more than half a dozen. So that's absolutely amazing. I mean, what she did there and risked her own life and her life obviously were uh, absolutely amazing, to do that. How many people would do that at that time? And the next body we want to talk about today is Azizun Bai. Her name is Azizun Bai, the courtesy of the betterindia.com. Born in 1832 to a courtesan, Azizun's mother died when she was young. As a young courtesan, Azizun Bai lived in the Lurki Mahal under the refuge of Umar Begum in Kanpur. During the uprising of 1857, her mom began a meeting for sepoys. She formed her own group of women to support the revolt, who rallied for the armed men, tended to the wounds, distributed arms and ammunition. She dressed in a male attire and fought using pistols as she rode her horse. She trained other women too. Her headquarters started firing shots to the Britishers right from the first day of the battle and helped Nana Sahib emerge victorious in Kanpur. She was later captured as a key schemer of the revolt, taken to General Howard and being told to confess to a crime. She declined the offer to be freed and opted for martyrdom instead. Now, there isn't much of a Wikipedia regarding Ashi, to be honest. So I couldn't find much on that. Now, like we said, but there is an article on feminisminindia.com where they talk about her and they talk about Zizun Bai. And Annals of History, Nisa, also known as Azizun Bai, was born in Lucknow. She lived in Kanpur. She professionally active as a courtesan, like we said, and she helped in the revolt. Now, it is noted that Indian freedom fighters often used Azizun Nisa's place of residence for holding clandestine meeting sessions among themselves. Apart from collecting and distributing arms and ammunition to the soldiers, she is believed to have trained women to fight. And the final one of this episode one of this article, which we want to highlight, this a woman warrior is Jalkari Bai. Her name is Jalkari Bai. So Jalkari Bai, Jankaribai led the Durga Dal, the women's brigade of Jhansi, while her husband was a soldier in the Jhansi army. Jankaribai was skilled in archery and swordplay. She had an uncanny resemblance to Rani Lakshmibai, which she used to trick the British. She successfully took command of the army, helped the real Queen Lakshmibai escape. She British only discovered her true identity only after imprisoning her. She was later released and lived until 1890. Jankaribai and the Durga Dal are some of the strongest women figures because they decided to not wait on the sidelines or embrace widowhood, but assert themselves, basically. Now let's talk a bit more about in depth about Jankaribai. So she played Jankaribai played an important role in the Indian Rebellion of 1857. She served in the Women's Army of Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi. She eventually rose to a position of prominent advisor to the Queen, Rani of Jhansi. She fought on the Queen's behalf, allowing the Queen to escape, like we said. So after the death of her mother when she was young, her father raised her, consistent with the social condition of the era. She lacked formal education but was trained in horseback riding and the use of weaponry. So, regarding her military service, in the Queen's army, she quickly rose in the ranks, began commanding her own army. During the rebellion of 1857, General Hughes Rose attacked Jhansi with a large army. The Queen faced the army with 14,000 of her troops. She waited for relief from Peshwa Nani Sahib's army, camping at Kalpi. That did not come because Tantier Top had already been defeated by General Rose. Meanwhile, Dulaju, in charge of one of the gates of the fort, had made a pact with the assailants and opened the doors of Jhansi for the British forces. When the British rushed the fort, Lakshmibai, on advice of Akote, escaped through Mandari Gate with her son and attendants to Kalpi. Upon hearing of Lakshmibai's escape, Jankaribai set out for General Rose's camp in disguise and declared herself to be the queen. This led to a confusion that continued for a whole day and gave the Rani army renewed advantage. The death of her celebrated as Shahid Deva's Matern Day by various Korea organizations. Now, we were going to talk a little bit about a couple of more, but we are running out of time on this first episode, to be honest. So these will be. But we are, like I said, we're running out of time, so we are unable to cover this. But we will cover this in the second episode of the series. This series is more than two parts. It is episodes. So we will have the second episode next week here only on the Women Agenda. The Women Agenda channel, as you know, is a channel to promote women, rising women talent with live interviews. We have a live interview on the 14th of January. You can't miss that one. It's going to be great with a very talented book author. And we have many other interviews coming up in January. Stay tuned, and I will be revealing the dates to these. So the second episode of India's Women Forgotten Warriors will be back next week. So stay tuned for that. Next week, it will be another amazing episode. I hope you guys liked it. Please click on the like button, send in your comments, subscribe to the channel, please. And if you want to support us, if you want to collaborate with us, advertise with us, get in touch, talentspotlight309@gmail.com. Or if you want to, you know, if you want to have an interview on here with us, you want to contribute, co-present, get in touch on the same email address. You can find us on our social media channels, and these are the places where you can find us. So that's our Twitter handler, Raju at Female Spotlight, and Facebook is Woman Talent Podcast. And this is again to confirm, this is our email address there to get in touch with us for everything. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Coming up later on today, we have a special on India's famous playback singers. That's a new series as well. The first episode today, later on. So do watch that and let us know what you think of that on there. And that will be another amazing series for us. Also do check out that later on. And there may be another special episode. We're looking on doing the big debate special today as well. So hopefully, with time being good, I'm going to be trying to do that today, the big debate special as well. So this is Raju from the Woman Agenda channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next the next one very soon.